Okay, on today's show, Tesco, Asda and Sainsbury's once again appear to be ripping people off. Forced universal credit deductions and police are apparently employing criminals. Let's begin. The article says that claimants of universal credit and other benefits may see their payment reduced if they owe energy payments. The DWP has confirmed that energy suppliers can resume putting in requests for fuel direct deductions when an energy debt is taken directly out of a person's claim or request to increase an existing deduction. Temporary changes to fuel direct were brought in from April 2022, which meant only claimants could make new requests for ongoing payment or to amend existing arrangements. The change was introduced owing to high energy prices, so claimants would not have to lose a substantial amount of their benefits in deductions. From the beginning of this month though, energy suppliers can resume requesting new or increasing deductions, but the supplier must first have the claimant's consent to put in the request. But if an energy supplier has not been able to get in touch with the individual who has an existing arrangement, they can contact the DWP. The DWP will then try to contact the claimant to encourage them to contact the energy supplier. Other organisations can also contact the DWP to ask for deductions for a person's benefits to pay for debts. This could include for court fines, rent or council tax. The office that pays the benefit will only agree to do this if the organisation has tried to contact the individual, and the person will be informed how much will be deducted from their payment by letter or in the Universal Credit Journal. A fixed amount will then be deducted from a person's benefit payments until they have paid off the debts they owe, and money can be deducted to pay up to 3 debts at once. For universal credit claimants, 5% will be deducted from their claim for each debt they owe. For rent that is owed, between 10 and 20% of a person's claim will be deducted though, and for those who receive other benefits, £3.85 per week will be deducted for each debt that they have to pay. Well, of course I don't know about you, but to me it seems like a bit of a reverse Robin Hood situation going on here, because surely they're robbing from the poor, people on benefits, and then passing the money to the rich. Which, I'm not being funny, but if your company has made several £billion in profit, like quite a lot of energy companies have done, then I think they'd probably fall into that category. And yes, obviously, debt does need to be repaid, but in the middle of a cost of living crisis, and especially with the way that energy prices are at the moment, I know they're meant to come down from July, but not by that much apparently. Especially, of course, adding that we no longer get the £66 deduction that we used to anymore. And yes, while it is good that they have to ask you or get your permission first, am I right in thinking that if they can't get in contact with you and the DWP for whatever reason can't get in contact with you, or they'll just forcibly take the money until you contact them, which to be honest is not really, I think, the right way going about it, especially for people who are on benefits. And no, I'm not talking about the ones who try and fiddle the system, although apparently they are in the minority. I'm talking about the ones who are generally desperately in need of that payment. I think personally the first thing I would do if I received such a request is to contact Citizens Advice and see what they say about it. Also, I'm sure there is a company out there called the Consumer Credit Counselling Service, which to be honest I think has been rebranded since then, so I'm not sure what it's called now, but they actually give people a lot of support with debts and go through the available options such as payment plans. And also, if you haven't got much money coming in and the debt's just piling up, you can apparently call the company up and pay what's called a token payment of just £1, which admittedly is arrangement to pay, but some payment, no matter how little, is better than no payment at all, and should stop any stressful letters until you can get yourself back on your feet, and then can manage to pay the debt off. It just makes me wonder though, how much notice would they actually give people before any such deductions come into your universal credit or other benefits? Because I can imagine a really horrible situation where it gets arranged with or without your consent, I guess if they can't contact you, and then comes off your next payment, which could actually make things a whole lot worse for you. So hopefully that this is a last resort rather than getting rid of any payment plan or token payment gesture option. Motoring Group, the RAC, today accused Britain's big four supermarkets, Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's and Morrisons, of overcharging drivers at petrol pumps. Though fuel prices fell for the 5th straight month in March, with a penny coming off the petrol and 4p off diesel, the RAC argues that diesel prices should have fallen much further. Wholesale petrol and diesel prices were almost identical during March, but the average price of diesel at the pumps was 162.9 pence compared to 146.5 pence for unleaded, a difference of 16.4p. The average retailer margin on a litre of diesel in March was 21p according to the RAC, and this is 3 times more than usual, and also 3 times the average margin for a litre of petrol in the same month. And if diesel prices at the pumps had come down with wholesale prices, a litre would only have cost £1.52, calculates the RAC. Of the big four supermarkets though, Asda sold the cheapest petrol during March at 142.7p a litre and Tesco the cheapest diesel at 159.6p. But a small retailer in Shropshire managed to sell both petrol and diesel at just 142.9p a litre, reflecting the wholesale prices of both for the month. The RAC said a lack of competition in the UK meant that supermarkets could exploit motorists, and in Northern Ireland, where petrol and diesel are respectively 2.5p and 10.2p cheaper than in the UK as a whole, the big four supermarkets make up only 28% of the forecourt market compared to 43% in the whole of the UK. Well, to be honest, I guess that kind of brings us on to the big elephant in the room. Why is it that a small petrol station can offer petrol at a significantly lower price than a big supermarket petrol station? And not just one of the big supermarkets, the big four. Surely if the little guy can afford to do it, then they certainly should be able to afford to do it, considering the amount of profits coming in from all their other things that they sell. And of course services with their mobile phone service, for instance. To me it just seems like they're trying to squeeze every little bit out of us motorists at a time when obviously the price of our food and drink has gone through the roof, isn't it? Surely if anything they're certainly noticing the profits from that. Not to mention of course with Tesco very kindly just deciding to change their club card points system for petrol, where of course now instead of getting 1 point for every £2 spent, it's 1 point for every 2 litres, which actually, if fuel ever goes back up like it did not so long ago, then that could actually be quite a big difference, couldn't it? Especially, of course, as they've not only done that, but also decided in their infinite wisdom to reduce our voucher points by a third. Which, if anything, is an even more bigger kick in the gonads, isn't it? Thank you for shopping with us, eh? Just makes me wonder, though, what they would do when EVs become more mainstream than what they are now. After 2030, I mean, will we have a sort of charger at every parking space in the supermarkets? And therefore, if that is the case, no doubt not only will they get profit from us shopping in store at the time, but they're also bound to get profits from us charging our car while we're doing it. Britain's biggest police force has moved officers from serious crime and counter-terrorism squads to internal affairs in an effort to tackle corruption in the ranks. Over 160 serving officers in the Metropolitan Police have criminal convictions, including sex offender cases and some serious violent cases, Met Chief Sir Mark Rowley confirmed. A series of high-profile scandals, including the murder of Sarah Everard by a serving officer and ex-PC David Carrick being unmasked as a serial abuser and rapist, have left the organisation's reputations in tatters. Commissioner Rowley, who began the job in September, has admitted that there are hundreds of corrupt officers on the force and has assigned 90 officers from serious crime units to the Directorate of Professional Standards, DPS, in an effort to root them out. In a letter to Home Secretary Suella Braverman and Mayor of London Sadiq Khan, he said, not only have we increased our DPS by 150 people, but the scale and urgency of this work has meant delivering officers from other missions such as serious crime and organised crime and counter-terrorism. Over the last 3 months we have had on average 90 additional officers and staff from these areas supporting the DPS. And we have taken this decision because we cannot succeed in our police mission unless we resolve these issues as urgently as possible. Since announcing the mission, he has been inundated with volunteers for the role. He added, the Met is conducting a series of reviews to officers and staff to try and weed out those who should not be in the job. More than 1,000 records where officers and staff were accused of domestic violence or sexual offences in the past 10 years have now been checked to make sure that the right decision was taken. Speaking on BBC's Radio 4 programme Today, Sir Mark Rowley said officers should be scrutinised even if they are not charged with a criminal offence. Now, of course, I don't know if it's just me, but I don't know, I guess I would have thought that probably at least a DBS check of any potential officers who are in training would actually be carried out. I mean, hopefully they are. And yes, obviously I'm not silly, I know that an occasional foo might get through the net, but if rigorous checks were done from the very beginning, a lot more than they probably were done, then they wouldn't be in this situation now at all, would they? And of course, at the end of the day, police would not have any criminal record at all, because how can police actually arrest someone if they themselves have a criminal record? Because surely the phrase practice what you preach comes to mind, doesn't it? And just screams of double standards like, oh, you can't do that, but I'll tell you what, our officers can. When actually they can't. And if anything, only gives the police a bad name. I mean, surely the police want to paint a picture that they're there to be trusted and to help us out and catch bad guys or whatever, but this goes completely against that and only ruins their reputation in my opinion. And just makes me wonder how many police around the country, not just in London, do actually have criminal records. But nowadays, especially of course since the woke explosion a couple of years ago, It just seems like they let anyone through their doors, especially if they tick some sort of box, which should not be the case when employing someone to uphold the law. But going back to universal credit, in this video, there's another thing that you need to watch out for. Anyway, subscribe for more and I'll see you in the next one.